Hello, you're with IndiaPostLive.com, India's first live conversation web TV portal where all of you can join in live on the conversations that we do. Today's conversation, in fact the conversation right now, is on the contentious issue of Indo-Pak ties. What message is PM-to-be Narendra Modi sending out by inviting Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif for his swearing-in ceremony? The Indo-Pak ties have been dormant for a while now. Do we see that gaining momentum? And another very important issue, how will Narendra Modi deal with those radical elements in Pakistan who are encouraging conflict? Well, that is the conversation, and all of you are invited to join. You can write your posts, you can leave your audio and video messages, you can just send a participation request and we will have you on our conversation through Skype and through Google Hangout. And of course, you can send us your tweets, #IndiaPostLive, @IndiaPostLive. So to begin this conversation, I have with me in the studio Simran Sodhi, who is the Foreign Affairs Editor with The Statesman. Simran, thank you so much for joining the conversation. And all the way from Pakistan, from Islamabad, I have with me Bilal Hassan, who is a journalist with Dawn. Good evening, Hassan. Can you hear me? Hassan, can you hear me? He joins us all the way from Islamabad through Google Hangout. Bilal Hassan, can you hear me? All right, there seems to be an audio problem, but we'll try and get back to him. I also have with me Jahanzeb Hussain, who is editor with a magazine called The Collateral Damage, and he's joining us from Vancouver. Hi, Jahanzeb. Good evening and welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
All right, what time is it there? I wished you good evening. I apologize. It's evening in India. What time is it there?
It's 6 in the morning.
6 in the morning, okay. And he has woken up early, I'm assuming, just to be with us on this conversation. Jahanzeb, thank you so much for joining. All right, first, Simran, let me ask you, the first question that I asked, I kind of put out 3 questions there for all of us to talk about. What message, first of all, is a PM-to-be Narendra Modi sending out by inviting Nawaz Sharif?
I think the first thing that Modi is doing is he's establishing himself as a global leader, because in his previous roles as Chief Minister of Gujarat, he was more of a leader within India.
Right.
And this way he's expanding his international appeal and his international standing. And it's a very smart thing to do, because in one swift gesture, he has established himself as a leader. He will meet the SAARC leaders on 26th of May. He will have his bilaterals. They will also get a chance to see who Modi is, because most of these leaders like Hamid Karzai, and if Nawaz Sharif comes, they have never really had a chance to interact with Mr. Modi. So this is giving him the first step in the direction of international diplomacy, the first step to establish himself as a world leader, as India's leader, and also somewhere he's sending a message that the neighborhood is very important to him. In his foreign policy, the neighborhood is likely to be the focus.
Right.
That is why the invites have gone to SAARC leaders, and it's a kind of a message that India has always been seen as the regional superpower as far as SAARC is concerned.
Right.
And he's also trying to get this grouping together to get a greater feeling of brotherhood between all the leaders.
All right. Let me talk to Jahanzeb. Okay, what is your feeling? You know, Mr. Narendra Modi has been seen as an icon of Hindutva. Now, his extension of this invitation to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, how do you think it is being viewed in Pakistan?
Well, I don't think within Nawaz Sharif's circles that would be much big of a deal. I think Nawaz Sharif has had good relations with the BJP. When Vajpayee was in power, he was on good terms with him before Kargil happened.
Yes.
So I think it is the same today. Nawaz Sharif would be happy to accept Narendra Modi's invitation and go to Delhi for his inauguration. I think personally Nawaz Sharif would want better relations with India, because that means
he said so as much,
good
yes.
for the Pakistani economy and good for the markets.
Right.
But this question is that of the army. I think just for the inauguration, the army wouldn't mind him going there, even though army doesn't like too much public show of affection towards India. But I think what Nawaz Sharif is looking for is that some sort of assurances that when he goes to India, Modi would not be too harsh on Pakistan. Because during the inauguration, if Nawaz Sharif is there and Modi says something too critical of Pakistan, the Islamists in Pakistan would jump on Nawaz Sharif and criticize him for going there.
Okay.
So I think that is what he is looking for right now. He's looking for some assurances that he wouldn't be giving a cold shoulder when he goes to Delhi.
All right, let me bring in Kamran Shafi here. He is a senior journalist and writer who's joining us from Lahore. Kamran, sir, thank you so much for joining us. We just heard Jahazeb tell us that, Mr. Nawaz Sharif is probably looking for some kind of an assurance that Mr. Modi will not be too acerbic towards Pakistan after his swearing in his public speeches. But, Sartaj Aziz, the foreign and security advisor, has said that, there has not been any formal acceptance of this invitation due to consultations. Do you see that as some kind of a conflict between the elected government and the army? Do you think there is there is some kind of a consensus building that is yet to happen on whether Mr. Sharif should travel?
Well, look, I don't speak for the army. I am, as you well know, I stand for pure and unadulterated democracy and all of that.
Of course.
But this invitation, there are two distinct sides to it. Remember that Mr. Nawaz Sharif invited Sardar Manmohan Singh, the Indian Prime Minister, to come to his swearing in. He did not come. There is a thing called reciprocity. Let me clear also at the very beginning that I am one of those who says that any chance that the two leaders of India and Pakistan get, they should meet.
Yes.
Any chance they get, they should meet. They should meet for tea and pakoras, they should meet for breakfast, they should meet for dinner. I couldn't care. They should meet, all Indians and Pakistanis should meet any time they get, because you need to get over the suspicion and all this nonsense. But there is a thing of India being the big boy and everybody else, smaller countries around SAARC.
Yes.
I would think very hard, like Mr. Nawaz Sharif is doing. I would think very hard before I said yes. As part of SAARC ko buna liya, humko bhi bilateral kijega. Bilateral, though he had invited Mr. Modi the day he got elected.
Yes.
If I remember.
Yes.
Nawaz Sharif had invited him. There's not even been an answer. So these things have to be looked at very, very carefully, and I'm not surprised that the government is taking this time coming to a decision.
Can I try and get Hassan Bilal again, who joins us from Islamabad? I can see him. Can I hear him? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, and I'm so glad I have your audio, because I know you have to go back to work. He is in fact working for the Dawn, and he can only be with us for a few minutes. Okay, so you have been listening to the conversation, I hope. What are your first thoughts on this invitation, and where we can see the bilateral ties going forward between India and Pakistan?
Well, obviously, we stand at this critical juncture where the relationship between India and Pakistan is a very key aspect of both countries' foreign policies. What this signals, in fact, like Kamran Sahab said before me, is that the government is obviously being cautious. They're taking their time in coming to a decision. Obviously, if you look at the press,
Bilal, there seems to be an audio problem again.
Pakistan.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
The English press, especially, the consensus seems to be.
All right, Bilal, we seem to be having a problem with your audio again. We'll try and get you back. Okay, can I bring in Shehzad Poonawala with us? He is the Congress spokesperson, and he is also joining us via Skype. Shehzad, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
All right. Shehzad, Mr. Modi's predecessor, Mr. Vajpayee, in fact, himself, he walked that extra mile when it came to Indo-Pak relations. He took that bus across the Wagah border to Lahore to sign the peace treaty. Now, a Prime Minister is who's going to be sworn in on Monday seems to have more of a hawkish kind of an image. What are your thoughts on the moving ahead of bilateral relations between the two countries?
I'll quickly make 3 points because I might have to leave. So,
sure.
Like you rightly said, we are glad that from having a hawkish image, now it's come down to being a dove. It's good. This is the kind of position that the Congress party was trying to push all along, in the sense that we need to have talks. Talks can't be suspended with Pakistan, and relations improve only with talks. But what you got in return from the BJP, and especially from this prime ministerial designate, is a language that was not only vociferous but can't even be repeated. For instance, now we're talking about inviting all SAARC nations, of which Pakistan is a part. That's very good. It has a symbolic value, although the BJP will like to tell you that it's nothing more than a Mundan ceremony, so it has no validity of that kind. But see, what happens is that when the last year, the Pakistani head of state visited Ajmer Sharif, it wasn't a bilateral visit. It wasn't an issue that had any implications. But but BJP's approach was that don't even call them here. Are you serving them chicken biryani? Are you going to sell out on the soldiers' bodies? No, these kinds of things were said by them throughout the campaign. Overnight, they've changed their position. Although the firing in Poonch sector has continued even after 16th May, we've lost 2 soldiers in the meanwhile. Arun Jaitley, the stalwart leader, tweeted in December that Nawaz Sharif is a man who can't be trusted. And now you have BJP doing a complete U-turn. We still welcome it. We still welcome it. Although opportunism, rank political hypocrisy should not be a part of diplomacy, we still welcome the fact that the process which was started, rightly pointed out by you, by Vajpayee, and which was strengthened by Manmohan Singh, which included talking to Pakistan, not abusing them, not ignoring them, is perhaps going to be continued by Mr. Modi. But all we are trying to say is that the Deputy NSA yesterday in a statement has said that the Pakistani establishment continues to support terror groups. The Pakistani establishment continues to not do enough to deal with these things that are taking place at the border, and you have seen the attack on the consulate. Many experts who are BJP, pro-BJP have always said that the Haqqani network has been funded by Pakistan. They are the ones who are attacking, and today they are singing a different tune.
All right.
They are saying be cautious, continue with talks, be cautious, and it's the Prime Minister's prerogative to invite anybody whom he wants to for his swearing in. I'm glad he did not invite Dawood Ibrahim, saying that he's inviting all the businessmen to
All right, Shehzad.
I take it with a pinch of salt that BJP behaves differently when opposition and when in power.
All right, Shehzad, thank you so much. We'll take a quick reaction on that. In fact, I would now like to talk to Yasir Latif Hamdani, who is a renowned writer and a lawyer, and he joins us from Islamabad. Okay. Yasir Latif Hamdani, hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Yasir? Okay, no, I believe I can't hear you. I think you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Can you just unmute your mic in case the mic is on mute? Can you check? All right. We'll try and get back to you, Yasir. Right now, I also have with me Rab Nawaz. Rab Nawaz is a very well-known blogger, and he's an editor with a very popular online magazine called Laltain.com. It is, in fact, Pakistan's first bilingual online magazine. Rab Nawaz, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Great, great. You can hear me and I can hear you. Wonderful. All right. Now, this, I can tell you, I mean, I don't know if you have actually been following the political, the election campaigns that we've had. You're aware we've had a staggered 9-phase election. You're aware that it was, very, very acerbic, lots of personal attacks. But also what was very interesting was that throughout the campaign, the man who is going to be Prime Minister has been warmongering, if so to speak, on Pakistan till the end of the campaign. And as soon as he was voted to power, the first thing he did was, invite Nawaz Sharif to his swearing in. Now, do you see that as some kind of statesmanship, or do you see that as, he's just presenting this picture of being, large-hearted? What exactly are you seeing this as?
Well, I think it apparently is a kind of very usual common tradition in our region, in subcontinent. Politicians have been doing that. BJP and especially Modi had that background. So I was not amazed. People were expecting that, though it's absolutely condemnable and it's not acceptable if anybody wants to be called a statesman in any sense. But the good part is, as the politics, as the harsh realities of politics do dictate, Modi himself later on have said, after I guess the results of the elections were announced, he said that something really positive, if India and Pakistan really have to have a war, the war should be on poverty, illiteracy, and superstition. So that means he kind of shifted afterwards. And the way he instantly, they took a decision to invite Nawaz Sharif, that also kind of indicates, gives a hint that Modi is kind of, in political sense, with open arms towards Pakistan. Now, depending on where it leads, how do both prime ministers and the whole region, how do the dynamics in coming times turn up? But at least, like, from that hawkish position to more a pragmatic kind of realities, that transition is good. But what has been going on during the elections, that was extremely negative, and because of all that, there was a kind of counter war mongering or hate mongering in Pakistan as well against Modi and against upcoming. And that could be a very serious challenge for kind of peace building between the both in the coming time. That whole episode of what happened during the election campaigns.
Okay, let me bring in Simran. Simran, you've been listening to all these people talking. Okay, now let me come back to you. This incident that happened earlier in the day, the attack on the Indian consulate in Herat, and also what Shehzad in fact pointed out, he said that the Haqqani has they have been targeting Indian establishments, and the Haqqanis are known to have backing from the ISI. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the timing is extremely suspicious.
Exactly, yes.
And because Nawaz Sharif is still to reply whether he will come or not, and then you have this attack on the Indian consulate.
Right.
So maybe somewhere this is kind of pressure building on Nawaz Sharif. The army would obviously, and the ISI would obviously push him in a direction which would take a harder view towards India, not a softer view which Nawaz Sharif personally might want to take.
Right.
So the attack remains very suspicious, but I still think that given the overall situation, Nawaz Sharif, it would be a wise thing for him to come to India despite all the things that we heard in the campaign, because Narendra Modi has made the transition from the campaign to being now in the government, and we are likely to see a very different person in governance. As Prime Minister, I think he'll be a very different person than what we saw him addressing rallies. We will see something very different.
Right.
And no one expected this invitation which has gone out to SAARC nations. He surprised everyone,
yes,
but in a positive way. And despite the attack on the Indian consulate in Herat today, I still feel that Mr. Sharif would do a huge favor to the region by coming, because that would be sending the right message to both the hard elements in India and Pakistan, that they are willing to talk despite all these things happening in the background.
Great. Okay, we will get back to Kamran sir also on this, but before that we have a video response, and that response is coming in from Shahryar Rizwan. Shahryar Rizwan is again a journalist with Dawn, so let's quickly find out what he has posted on IndiaPostLive.com.
I think this invitation by Mr. Modi is a positive sign and a positive gesture, and I think Prime Minister Sharif should definitely accept it and go, even though it's not out of some special bond with Pakistan, but because all SAARC nations have been invited. Let's not forget that. Nonetheless, let's hope this is the beginning towards a more meaningful, a more result-oriented relationship between the two countries. Let's hope the two countries take it from here and engage for a peaceful region and for the betterment of people of both the countries. And I think if Prime Minister Sharif accepts the invitation, it will send out a positive message that Pakistan is willing to work with India regardless of who is in power.
All right, so India and Pakistan need to work together regardless of who is in power. That seems to be the common sentiment here. Before I get Kamran sir, I would like to talk to Hassan Bilal again because he has to leave. Okay, the question I want to ask you, Bilal, is, of course, Narendra Modi has made it very clear, and so have various experts, that Mr. Modi's first challenge is going to be to get the economy, Indian economy, back on track. Now, there has been an economic slump. Now, how do you think, if he has to do that, he has to do business with Pakistan, right? And also there are these hardliner elements who want conflict. So how do you think he will, that is the biggest challenge for him, don't you agree? Okay, I cannot hear you. You need to unmute the mic.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
You're back.
I would go as far as saying that it's the biggest challenge, because obviously India, being the huge country it is, faces a lot of problems from a lot of different quarters. But definitely the fact that India and Pakistan must do business with each other in the short term as well as the long run to ensure sustainable economic benefits for both sides is an inevitability. There's a lot of talk about the MFN status starting up again recently. You see that in the headlines in Pakistan as well. So it is a talking point. It's on the radar of not just the Pakistani government, but I also think the Indian government as well. And in the long run, the security of Pakistan, especially internally, is tied to a peaceful eastern border, because that's the only way, in fact, that we can actually come and fight the terrorist problem that we have, if we have a secure eastern border. So, doing these things, the trade, confidence building measures, people-to-people contacts, all of this contributes towards greater stability and security for both India and Pakistan, internally as well as in terms of the region.
Or what is your reaction on this attack that happened in Afghanistan? Don't you think it's a message that's being sent out? Like Simran just told us, yeah.
Yeah, the attacks in Afghanistan, I believe, because I was just there a few months ago, right before the election. So right now you have to understand the context in which the Afghan movements is occurring. You still have the runoffs to go ahead. And so this could well be a part of that wave of electorally driven violence. Because, the Taliban, I was there on Nowruz Day when the Taliban took the Serena Hotel. One of our colleagues from the foreign wires, they tragically murdered along with his family. They're doing these big style attacks to grab attention. So it's very hard to tell, unless there's a blatant claim of responsibility, which side carried it out. It could as well be linked to electoral violence, or it could be, we just don't have the facts quite yet.
All right, all right. Can I please talk to Kamran sir now? Kamran sir, you just heard what Bilal said and what Simran said. Now this attack on the Indian consulate in Herat, do you think it was done, the timing was done to axe, this meeting between Nawaz Sharif and Mr. Modi?
Very difficult to say. Look, the invitation came 2 days ago.
Right.
And the attack happened today.
Yes.
So everything was put into motion inside of 24 hours, the 36 hours. I don't know. It has really become fashionable now to put everything on the plate of the ISI.
Right.
The other one. The ISI has come in self-policy. The same people, they're out of control. We have a huge problem. Read the New York Review of Books, Ahmed Bashir on Karl Lagerfeld's book. It's very important to read. And you'll see that we are caught between a rock and a hard place, really. But coming back to India-Pakistan relations, of course, it should be very frequent meetings, as I'm repeating myself. Because bilaterals really matter. Bilaterals are the ones that really matter.
There has been a deep-seated suspicion between the two countries. How will Mr. Narendra Modi and Mr. Nawaz Sharif, how will they really go about in, dispelling that and really moving forward when it comes to bilateral, especially economic ties?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see Mr. Sharif getting onto a bus and going to Delhi.
Okay.
As I say, you go on meeting, and Mr. Vajpayee did extremely well here, and it's absolutely wonderful. So we've got to keep trying. And remember, there are extremists on both sides. Don't tell me there aren't extremists in India who want to take a harder line on Kashmir. I've been on so many shows on your own. I think NDTV is your thing, isn't it? I've been on so many shows when you see hardline generals saying take tougher line on Kashmir, on Pakistan and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What tougher line, man? Young kids that whether they're Indian or Pakistani, I don't care. On the end of stay and so on. So we've got to move this relationship along, but let there be bilaterals. Bilaterals are the things where these things really go.
All right, can I
wish
get...
Mr. Modi would answer Mr. Sharif's invitation.
Right, all right. All of you who are watching, yes, who wants to say a point?
This is Shehzad here. Before I lose the connection,
Yeah.
I just want to make a brief point.
Yeah.
See, I have not been able to hear some parts of the conversation.
Yes.
All I'm saying that the next government, the next government wants to invite people. They think terror and invitations can go together, even though they thought terror and talks couldn't. That's welcome. But let us understand that Nawaz Sharif is the same man whom we burnt our hands with. We took a Lahore bus yatra and we got Kargil in return. So we have to tread cautiously. And I would say that I would be curious to know whether Mr. Sharif would be served biryani. But I also want to know if Mr. Modi will bring up 2611 and the trial of 2611. Will he also talk about concrete issues like what is happening on the border, whether the firing in Poonch sector will be taken up, whether there are other issues that are going to be important for both the countries, include back channel talks to improve trade ties. So let us go with a comprehensive agenda, not just do the the sugary coated things, but even the hard things that BJP was expecting out of us.
All right. Shehzad, please drive safely. I don't know. You're driving and talking to us. You have a driver. All right. All right. Can I get Jahazeb Hussain now, who's joining us from Canada? Okay, I hope you haven't gone off to sleep. Great. Okay, you can't. The conversation is very interesting. And in fact, I would like to invite all of you also who are watching to send us your audio and video comments, send us your tweets. Jahazeb, you've just heard Kamran sir talking, you've heard Bilal. Everybody is saying that, no matter what, it is important that people talk. And we were talking about the economic agenda that Mr. Modi has to bring to the table, because his first job is actually to get the Indian economy back on track, which has seen a slump in UPA 2. Before I get back to Simran on her comments on what Shehzad just told us, Jahazeb, what are your comments? What do you think about the economic ties between the two?
Nawaz Sharif's on his top of his agenda that he should also get Pakistan's economy going.
Right.
So for both the countries to come closer, especially on economic terms. But I think, the big question remains if the army is willing to allow closer economic ties between the two. The army understands that the bigger threat comes from the Taliban on the western side of the border, and it cannot afford any conflict with India on the eastern side. But does that mean it is going to allow closer relationships with India? That remains to be seen. I think it would largely depend on how Nawaz Sharif and the army are able to negotiate as far as the Taliban question is concerned, because that's the main thorn in the relationship at the moment.
All right.
I think that would be the crucial factor.
Okay.
We saw that every time Nawaz Sharif or Zardari or even Musharraf tried to get close to India, the ISI carried out attacks in India, Kargil, Mumbai, Indian Parliament. But I don't think anything like that can happen today, because Pakistan simply cannot afford to have a conflict with India at this moment, especially with the Taliban threat on one side and a prime minister like Modi on the other side.
All right. Let me get Yasir Latif Hamdani's response. Can we get your audio now? Can you hear me? Yasir, you can hear us, but we seem to be having an audio problem again. Hello? Yasir, can you just see if there is a mute button which has been inadvertently, you've muted it? I can't hear you, and I know you can hear me. You're responding to me. I really wanted your views on this, because you've been a witness to this entire conversation, and I really wanted your comments. But all right, let me talk to Simran. Simran, Shehzad pointed out a lot of issues that need to be brought to the table, and of course, Dr. Manmohan Singh refused to travel to Pakistan till the 26/11 victims were the perpetrators were brought to book. So where do you think all these issues will stand under the new regime?
I think there's a slight hype by the Congress. We have to give the new government and the new Prime Minister some time.
Right.
This would be the first meeting on the sidelines. This is not a proper bilateral. This is on the sidelines of the swearing in. If Mr. Sharif comes, and that's a big if he comes, then he and Mr. Modi will sit down and talk. During the talk, it will also be a chance for both of them to just know one another. So 26/11 might come up, it might not come up. I don't think that is the issue here, because in the very first meeting, no one can really ask Pakistan, oh, what are you doing on 26/11? But I think it will give them both a chance to know one another, which is very important, because Mr. Modi's government, with the huge majority they have, they are going to stay here for the next 5 years. You have Nawaz Sharif, who's democratically elected in Pakistan.
Yes.
So I think the focus of the meeting should be that Nawaz Sharif should come, they should meet, they should be able to talk in the future, and all those issues of 26/11, terrorism coming from Pakistan, which are hugely important to India,
also
will be
some
taken
ceasefire violations also
yes,
that we've
yes.
been
all that will be taken up and should be taken up, but I think we'll have to give them some time. And I also feel that the reason why Dr. Manmohan Singh could not travel to Pakistan or could not push his policy so much was because he always had the handicap of a coalition, which this government will not have. So they will be more aggressive, they will be in a greater position to formulate a policy. So the Congress was always handicapped by its coalition partners, which Mr. Modi will not be handicapped by. And I think, to be very fair, we should give him some time. Let's see how he formulates his foreign policy, and then we can say that, oh, okay, maybe he's not really doing anything and it was all
then
hype.
we can pontificate, yes, as we always do. All right, let me get Rabnawaz back. Rabnawaz, editor of Lantain.com, Pakistan's first online bilingual magazine. Rabnawaz, what has been the response of other political parties to Mr. Modi's, his surprise, that he invited Nawaz Sharif to his swearing in? How have other political parties reacted?
I think most of the mainstream parties, they have kind of given a green signal to it. Most importantly, the opposition leader in the parliament, which belongs to Pakistan People's Party.
Right.
His name is, he has said that Prime Minister should actually go to India and establish good relations with it. So that shows, like, political parties, at least the mainstream ones, they are pretty much open and clear on this issue. But on the other hand, this is something that I really wanted to say, that there are other groups, religious groups, and we know who they are, Jamaat-ul-Dawa and others.
Yes.
They have already started campaigning against it, and they are not just like against Modi and against India per se, which they have been doing for a while, but they have recently launched this campaign for a week around Pakistan's nuclear attacks, which is celebrated annually on 28th of May. So
right.
just like Pakistan is facing this problem from the inside, from the groups, these hardliners, so is Modi. And the challenge for both of the prime ministers is how to tackle these hardliners from within, and at the same time, when it comes to their foreign policy, I think they are pretty much pragmatic, and so are mainstream parties. There are issues, but that's not that much a big deal.
All right, all right. A very optimistic Rabnawaz over there. Let me get Kamran sir's last comments. We have to wrap up the conversation. The conversation, of course, will continue online, but we'll have to wrap it up from the studio. Kamran sir, your last comments on this conversation.
As Mr. Vajpayee said, we can't choose our neighbors. Nobody can. It is the height of stupidity if both these poor countries that have such a lot of potential in their human resource and the natural resources that they have, that they should be at each other's throats like we are. It is so hurtful, really, and we have to leave this baggage behind. We have to understand India has to understand that a destabilized Pakistan is not in its interest. Pakistan has to understand that a destabilized Afghanistan is not in its interest. So we should just stop meddling in other countries. Let's just get together and go ahead for the good of our people, for God's sake.
Right.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All the very best.
Yes, Kamran sir, thank you so much. In fact, people of both countries, journalists, thinkers of both countries seem to be of the same view that, we have to wait and watch policy, Simran, and also give both of them time to really take things forward. But the fact that they have to talk.
Yes.
Your final comment, Simran.
My final thing is, I hope Nawaz Sharif comes. It's going to be difficult for him with the army, with the attack and everything.
Yes.
But I hope he comes. I hope both of them sit down and talk, so that it gives them the first chapter in a relationship, so that in the future, 2 months, 3 months down the lane, then they can have bilaterals and they can solve issues. Terrorism, Bombay, economy, all these things will have to be taken up slowly. They will have to have long discussions, long talks on Kashmir, everything. But my final thought is, I hope Nawaz Sharif makes it.
All right. So that will be a start to everything
Yes,
else.
it will be a good, positive start.
Right.
And Mr. Nawaz Sharif will also be asserting himself that despite everything, I'm here, I appreciate this gesture, and I'm ready to take this relationship forward. It will be a good, positive sign from him also.
All right. Thank you so much, Simran. And I would like to thank Jahazeb Hussain, who joined us all the way from Vancouver. Thank you so much, Jahazeb. I would like to thank Yasir. Of course, we couldn't hear him, but I'm sure I would request him to leave his audio, video comments or his posts or his tweets. I would like to thank Rabnawaz. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. And also, of course, Belal Hassan of The Dawn, and Kamran sir, also a senior journalist and writer. All of you, thank you so much for joining the conversation online and talking to us and giving us your insights. Simran, of course, it was a pleasure to have you in the studio with your insights. The conversation continues. Remember to leave your audio and video messages, your tweets, your posts on www.indiapostlive.com and hashtag IndiaPostLive and @IndiaPostLive. Conversation continues. Thank you so much.